Ragtime was everywhere back in the early 1900s, in sheet music, piano rolls, phonograph records, and ragtime piano playing contests. The majority of music played was ragtime. Houses churned out piano rags at a furious pace. Ragtimes also appear in arrangements for orchestras and wind bands. Ragtime music had a brief but spectacular run of less than 20 years between 1899 with the release of Scott Joplin's Maple Leaf Rag and 1917 with Joplin's sad passing in a mental health institution from pituitary syphilis. Part of the reason for ragtime's demise was the sobering effect of the First World War, which made ragtime seem outdated coming as it did from an innocent era. There were brief revivals of ragtime in the 1920s, 1950s, and 1970s, but after 1930, it was largely consigned to musical history as a precursor of early jazz. The appeal of ragtime not only reflected the mix of African American and European cultures, but also changed attitudes in the United States during the turn of the century. Owning a piano had become a symbol of status and an important form of family entertainment. And most white households had one. Ragtime's simple march rhythms made lively listening, and its complex, ragged syncopation was advocated for the faster pace of the new urban industrial lifestyle. The popularity of ragtime reached its peak in 1910. It preceded the beginning of commercial radio broadcasting, 1920, by 10 years, yet it flourished throughout the country. Ragtime's most important and prolific composers were Scott Joplin, Joseph Lamb, and James Scott, and their music spread from coast to coast, the publishing distribution of thousands of copies of sheet music. After Joplin's death, ragtime evolved into this stride style of driving music that was popular during the 1920s. One branch of this new style became a bridge to swing music, and the other into early jazz. Scott Joplin, who is often associated with ragtime, born between the summer of 1867 or mid-January 1868. His birth wasn't quite clear. Joplin's career took him from his modest homestead on the Texas or Arkansas border to New York's Tin Pan Alley, New York City, where he would eventually start composing. His greatest fame came from his time in the Midwest, where he was known as the King of Ragtime. Even after his acknowledgement as the King of Ragtime, Joplin kept composing all the way to just before his death in April 1917. Joplin's life spanned the unsettled post-Civil Wars through much of the World War I. His music embraced aspects of African American popular heritage that thrived during the crucial period. However, it also embraces elements from his formal musical training. For example, he found it perfectly responsible to combine the rhythms of ragtime with the larger structures and forms of art music genres such as ballets or operas. Ragtime music was basically a solo piano style that maintained a military march-like beat, with the left hand broken up with syncopated melodies played by the right hand. This ragged method of playing gave the genre its name. The song structure incorporated 4 themes played in order: A, B, A, C, D, forming a bridge between military marches, band music, and the syncopated compositions of early jazz pianists Jelly Roll Morton and James P. Johnson. Ragtime was based on 2 musical traditions that coexisted in the United States since the Civil War. Written compositions, the piano march beat, and the chord progressions were contributions from the European tradition, and polyrhythms, 2 or more contrasting rhythms played simultaneously. And syncopated were a contribution made from the African traditions that had evolved from the days of the slave trade. Ragtime quickly established itself as a distinct American form of popular music. Ragtime became the first African American music to have impact on the mainstream popular culture. Piano professors such as Jelly Roll Morton played ragtime in sporting houses of New Orleans. Polite society embraced ragtime as decimated by brass bands and society dance bands. Bands led by W.C. Handy and James R. Europe were among the first to crash the color bar in American music. The new rhythms of ragtime changed the world of dance bands and led to new dance steps popularized by show dancers Vernon and Irene Castle. During the 1910s, the growth of dance orchestras and popular entertainment was an outgrowth of ragtime and continued into the 1920s. Ragtime also made its way to Europe. Shipboard orchestras and transatlantic lines included ragtime music in their repertoire. James R. Europe's 369th Regiment Band generated great enthusiasm during its 1918 tour of France.